Welcome to Preservation Oaks, the podcast where we invite you to step away from the bustle of everyday life. Settle in and relax, and take a moment to leave the familiar behind as we explore the hidden gems of America that preserve our cultural past. We call them our Preservation Oaks, and with each episode, we'll journey to a different corner of the country, where we'll discover the unique histories, landscapes, and communities that make up our nation. We'll visit with local museums, historical and genealogical societies. They are the stewards of these stories. They preserve the legacy of each place like precious pieces of fabric in a quilt that binds the freedom-loving, hardworking people in this country together. So, slow down, grab a beverage, open your mind, and let us take you on a tour of the fascinating histories and heartfelt traditions that lie just beyond the horizon. This is Preservation Oaks, where every story is a stitch in the fabric of our shared culture. Now, join our host, Sean Radcliffe, as he uncovers another thread in the tapestry of America's heritage and what it takes to preserve it.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Preservation Oaks. Welkom aan iedereen uit Nederland. We're really excited about today's episode because we have a fantastic guest joining Sean today. Lisa Kinney is the Executive Director of the Crossroads Museum and historic Corinth Depot over in Corinth, Mississippi. She spent over 30 years in education as a teacher, librarian, and academic coach. So she knows all about working with communities, telling stories, and helping people connect with the world around them. She's a proud Mississippi State grad with certifications in gifted education, remedial reading, and library media, and she brings a real heart for service to everything she does. We're thrilled to have her on the show to talk about her journey, the incredible history at the Crossroads Museum, and why preserving our past is so important. Nestled steps from active freight rails, this museum is every train lover's paradise, complete with an elevated viewing platform for conductor-style views. Inside, you'll discover thousands of artifacts tracing Corinth's cultural and industrial heritage, plus the Margaret Green Rogers Library and a quirky gift shop perfect for souvenirs. Don't forget to climb aboard the bright red caboose next door for that perfect selfie. By the end of our conversation, you'll be inspired to join Lisa and her team in their mission, honoring the past, celebrating local culture, and building tomorrow's legacy one rail spike at a time. Find Preservation Oaks at preservationoaks.podbean.com or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Rumble, YouTube, and more. Wherever you listen, please like, comment, follow, and subscribe. It helps us shine a spotlight on the everyday heroes safeguarding our history. Want to be a guest or share feedback? Drop us a line at preservationoaks@gmail.com. Huge thanks to you, our listeners, for spreading the word and championing these incredible organizations. Your support keeps our heritage alive. On our next episode, we'll be heading to Lindsborg, Kansas, to hang out with Aubrey Wheeler, Executive Director of the Lindsborg Old Mill and Swedish Heritage Museum. With 2 National Register buildings, rich archives, and a mission to bring Smoky Valley history to life, you won't want to miss it. And now, here's a brief biography of today's guest, Lisa Kinney. Lisa Kinney is a passionate advocate for education, history, and community engagement, and currently serves as the Executive Director of the Crossroads Museum and historic Corinth Depot in Corinth, Mississippi. Lisa brings a wealth of experience to her leadership role, shaped by a distinguished career spanning more than 30 years in education and library services. A proud graduate of Mississippi State University, Lisa earned her Bachelor of Science degree in elementary education and holds certifications in gifted education, remedial reading, and library media. She began her professional journey teaching elementary students, a path that would continue for 25 years, where she excelled in classroom management, lesson planning, differentiated instruction, and curriculum development. In addition to her teaching, Lisa served as an academic coach for the Alcorn School District, helping implement response to intervention strategies and overseeing dyslexia screenings and ESL testing district-wide. Lisa's expertise also extends to the library sciences, having served as a school librarian for Mitchie Elementary School in Tennessee, where she fostered a love of reading and learning among K through 8 students. After retiring from education in 2019, Lisa transitioned into museum leadership, where her passion for storytelling, history, and community building continues to shine. At the Crossroads Museum in historic Corinth Depot, she works to preserve and share the rich history of Corinth and its pivotal role in American history. Lisa's lifelong commitment to learning and service makes her a vibrant and insightful voice in the world of historic preservation and education. All right, that being said, let's get this show snapping. We're excited to do this.
Lisa, welcome to Preservation Oaks. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Hey, what's your favorite spot to grab a coffee or sweet treat in downtown Corinth?
Well, I would say that would be SoCo Grind. It's a great spot to grab a coffee or a tea. If you have time to go in and sit, their shop is really neat. It's eclectic and they've got free Wi-Fi. They have awesome scones and muffins. But if I just want a good old sweet treat, then I'm going to go to Lauren's Cake Shop.
Oh.
Her cupcakes and other goodies are just heavenly. She has a different theme and all kinds of unique flavors every day.
I really enjoy cafes like that where I can sit, crack my laptop open, and just enjoy the day.
Yeah, I do too.
What local legend or ghost story have you heard about Corinth's Crossroads nickname?
I haven't heard a particular ghost story linked to the term crossroads, although there are a lot of old wives' tales in the South that say if you want to make a bargain with the devil, then you need to visit the crossroads at midnight so you can exchange your soul to the devil for whatever gift you want him to impart. And likewise, there are some reports that we've heard over the years of witches gathering at the crossroads at midnight in order to seal a deal with the devil. But most of the ghost tales that we hear are reports of people seeing ghostly lanterns on the tracks late at night or soldiers in their Civil War attire. My former next door neighbor said that she has had multiple encounters when getting up for a late night drink of water with a fully garbed Confederate soldier in her kitchen.
Oh, my. Wow. Is her house new or from that Civil War era?
It's new, but the area where we live, she still lives there, but I've moved. It's hard to throw a stone around here, actually, where there wasn't some part of the battle of Corinth or the trek from here to Shiloh with skirmishes that ensued. There's the possibility for some type of ghostly encounters, if you believe in that, about anywhere you could shake a stick at around here.
I'll bet you have a lot of, what do they call those guys? Paranormal researchers around the area?
We do. We have some that have done ghost hunting event here before and have contacted me recently because they're interested in doing it again.
Oh, cool. Wow. That's cool.
There's a couple of things that I have in mind that I've talked with the board about planning in conjunction maybe with the ghost tour that might involve having some local students dressed up like historical figures and as in character, and then ensuing with the ghost hunt.
I bet you they get a big kick out of that.
Yeah.
Which annual festival in Alcorn County do you look forward to the most?
I always enjoy the annual Slug Burger Festival.
What's a slug burger?
Okay, the slug burger is a local delicacy. There are no actual slugs
Oh,
involved.
thank God. Okay.
The moniker came about during the Depression years when meat was scarce and pennies had to be really stretched. To make their products go further, some local diner cooks started combining ground pork or ground beef with soy flour to make a dough-like mixture. And they would form it into patties, and then it's fried really, really crisp. And at the time, the cost for one of these burgers was 5 cents or a slug nickel. And thus the name slug burger was born. They're most commonly served around here on a bun with mustard, pickle, and onion. So the Slug Burger Festival is just an opportunity to remember and celebrate a little part of our unique heritage. And there are always plenty of activities for the community during this 3-day festival. It usually starts on a Thursday night and runs Thursday night, Friday night, and then Saturday it begins in the late afternoon and runs through till 9 or 10 at night.
Okay. And when is that festival? When does it occur?
It is in July, and last year it came in conjunction with the 4th of July weekend. It's usually around the first or second weekend in July.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I was reading that vegans, they put soy flour or wheat flour to make their vegan meat and make burgers out of that. So yours is kind of a half and half, kind of half vegan, half not vegan.
The slug burger would be good for people who need to graduate into a vegan diet.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, very cool. It must be delicious. I bet you saw a lot of them.
Well, we do. People either really like them or they are like, that is not for me.
Yeah. Now, what compelling narratives from your area's history encapsulate its spirit and heritage?
I think the railroad really encapsulates the heart of our town and history. The beginning of the railroads, just prior to the outbreak of the Civil War, brought commerce and population growth to Corinth, Mississippi. The vital role of these train tracks, the crossroads, this spurred the Battle of Corinth, and it was also integral in leading up to the Battle of Shiloh. But then after the war, the presence of the railroads was again integral in aiding the recovery and the rebuilding of the area. And today we still have a very active crossroads here with trains traveling through multiple times every day. So the railroad to me is like crossing a bridge from our past to our present.
Do the trains come at the same time every day?
No. Well, there are some that you can pretty much set your clock on.
Yeah.
But there are others that seem to be just intermittent. Maybe there's a window that sometime between 11:30 and 12:15, there's usually a train that comes by, but it may not be right at the exact time. But I know where I live is just about 3 or 4 blocks north of the depot. And at 11 o'clock every night, we hear the train, and my husband and I will say, oh, it's 11 o'clock if we need to get to bed.
Now, I have one that comes through here around 1:30, 2 in the morning.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Up on the mountain, further up than I am. I'm up on the benches, and it's further up the mountain than I am. I think it's for the mine here, the copper mine.
Oh, yeah, could be.
Now, I was reading that your museum has like a viewing platform or something like that where people can see the train.
We do. Several years ago, the board of directors was able to acquire an antique fire truck that It's from 1924, I believe, and it had been used by the fire department here in Corinth. And it was actually, as I understand it, one of the fire trucks. There was a big major fire in Corinth in 1924, that destroyed many blocks downtown and city center. And this was one of the fire trucks that actually was used in that effort at putting out the fires. So obviously we couldn't put it inside the museum, so they built a shed but it's glass enclosure where people can see the fire truck, and there's a mural painted on the back wall and signage that tells about it. And then they built the platform on top of that viewing shed.
Oh, nice.
And that's where people go up and see the trains from up there.
That's great. Is there room for like a lawn chair where just in case you're not quite sure when the train comes and you got to wait?
There he is.
Very cool. That's a really early engine too, that fire engine.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It is.
Considering automobiles just started in 1910 or whatever it was. Very cool.
Yes.
How was your town founded, and what landmark events do you believe have had the most impact on its history?
Corinth was originally established in 1853. It was not named Corinth to begin with, though. It was first called Cross City because of the railroad tracks crossing here. But it was renamed later in honor of the famous Greek crossroads, the city of Corinth there. I believe the presence of the railroads and the Battle of Corinth equally made a lasting historical impact on shaping our town and the surrounding area.
Yeah. And even now, it's still a rail center, and your museum sits right on that crossroad, and you can see the trains and hear the trains, and it must be a wonderful thing every day.
And we feel the trains.
Oh, yeah, imagine. Oh, yeah.
It makes the building shake sometimes.
Oh, be darn.
Because we are literally right on from the gift shop. Behind the windows in the gift shop, there's a little sidewalk, and then there's the east and westbound train tracks right there.
Oh, I'll be darned. You ever put coins on the tracks? We used to do that when we were kids.
I used to do that when I was a kid too.
Yeah.
I haven't since I've been working here. No.
Okay.
Now you've put that in my head. I'll probably have to go out there and do it.
You're going to have to,
Yeah.
Now, how do the unique traits of your region present both difficulties and potentials for preserving its heritage?
Sean, despite the importance of the battle fought here and the railroad junction, Corinth was basically just a little spot on the map until about 20 years ago. It was a place that travelers passed through on Highway 72 from Huntsville, Alabama to Memphis, or on Highway 45 going to Tupelo, Mississippi, or Jackson, Tennessee. But thankfully, some smart people who understood the significance of Corinth and the untapped potential for tourism got to work on rebranding and promoting our little town as a good place to visit or to retire. Recently, in the last 5 to 6 years, our downtown shops have undergone extensive renovations, and it's created some very unique shopping and dining experiences and venue opportunities. The beauty and quaintness of Corinth, combined with the available history everywhere you look, has led to an increased interest and ability to continue working at preserving our history here, because we're having more and more people coming to visit us here.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Corinth is just south of the Tennessee border in Mississippi. It's a beautiful, beautiful location, wonderful town. And by the way, Mississippi is really coming up in the world right now, they are just, I don't know what's going on in Mississippi, but they're doing a lot of things right.
I don't know either, but it seems like you're correct.
It's really growing.
Yes. We have someone on American Idol, I think it is, that's one of the top contenders right now. So one more time that Mississippi is showcasing our ability to produce some outstanding musical talent.
Yeah. Well, you've had that. I mean, you are the home of jazz, right? It's where jazz began, I believe.
Blues, yeah.
Yeah. Or blues. Yeah, blues. It was. Yeah.
hmm
I'm not a big music aficionado, but I really love the blues.
Yes. Yes, I do too.
What captivating yet lesser known narratives about your town does your organization emphasize in its work, in your displays, in your exhibits?
There are a number of these types of stories that we do highlight. Just to pick one, though, I want to mention the Corona Women's College. As you know, it was not very common for women to be able to receive a formal education in the 19th century.
Right.
Yet, even so, here in the South, a female college or seminary, as it was sometimes called, was established in Corinth in 1857. It was called the Corona Women's College. The college had a Lyceum Society, and they published a literary magazine that was titled The Wreath. The young women who got to attend here, it was a boarding school as well. They were taught from literature. I think it's interesting that it was very progressive for its time, yet there were also stipulations. When you read about the curriculum there, it says that the young women were encouraged in the studies of literature and the arts and gentle history and studies in math and sciences were not promoted, however, because they were not considered feminine learning.
Right.
And they were also taught basic homemaking skills, how to be a good hostess and that sort of thing. It was very progressive for its time period because women were not commonly encouraged to pursue advanced studies. They might be allowed to learn to read and do some basic calculations in a home setting. But this was a boarding school. It provided advanced learning for young women in what they considered genteel and feminine subjects such as literature and the arts and some lighter history. No math or sciences because that was not considered feminine. When the battle began and the Union Army moved in here to Corinth, they commandeered the use of the college for a hospital. After the Battle of Shiloh, there was a great need for a hospital, so the Union Army used the college, and the Confederate soldiers used the Tishomingo Hotel, which was right here adjacent to the depot, as their hospital. But unfortunately, when the Union Army vacated Corinth in 1864, they burned the college upon exiting, and it was never rebuilt.
Oh, that's too bad.
It was.
Huh. Now, Lisa, you're the director of the Crossroads Museum and Historic Corinth Depot. What sparked the creation of your organization, and how did early challenges or successes shape its mission and goals?
Well, the original spark for a local history museum came from its founder, a woman named Margaret Green Rogers. Mrs. Rogers was a retired school teacher and local historian. And it was her vision to create a place to preserve our rich heritage and educate the community about this heritage. The museum first received its charter in 1979. By 1980, a board had been elected. and work was being done in conjunction with the tourism department to promote and organize. Initially, there was a variety of locations tried out for housing the artifacts or hosting exhibitions. The first museum was actually set up in what was the former Army National Guard building. And as the mission and scope of the Crossroads Museum expanded, we were granted use of the historic depot. The city had taken over ownership of this building at that time, and they agreed that this would be a good place for us to house our museum. And we're right on the very crossroads of which we have our namesake. So it was all very fitting. We've been in this building since 2006.
Oh, wow. That's not that long ago.
No.
Cool. Now, trains don't stop at the depot any longer, do they?
No, they do not. The last passenger train came through here in 1969.
Okay. Now, I imagine just after you started, had anyone been collecting artifacts and historical things prior to the organization starting, or did you put out a call, give us your artifacts once you started?
Well, I think Mrs. Rogers, being the historian that she was, she had quite a collection herself, and then she had connections with other people in the community who were like-minded and had things in their possession that were pertinent to the function of a museum as far as what kind of artifacts she wanted to showcase, things that went along with our history in this town. And so that's how it started. But then over the years, it has largely been just people in the community, or sometimes people who had roots here, but they've moved on, but their great uncle used to live here and they inherited something that had been his, and they'll call or send me an email and say, I've got this old cotton gin sack from the old mill,
Oh, yeah.
just that sort of thing. So
well, I read about Sherman's march to the sea in the Civil War, and how, well, I believe what I read was, as he marched to the sea, for whatever reason, to deny the enemy whatever supplies and resources, they would destroy stuff along the way.
yeah.
And did that happen in Corinth? So what I'm trying to get at is, the town had a history prior to the Civil War. And then it had this Civil War with a bunch of history. And I imagine a lot of the artifacts that you've collected are, from that Civil War period.
Mm-hmm.
But were there many artifacts prior to the Civil War left to collect?
Probably not. There are a few things that we have, like a chair or a spinning wheel or something like that, that was part of a private collection that had come down through families. That there were things that not everybody's home was burned, and some people were able to evacuate and they took a wagon load of things with them. So, then you have these little heirlooms that were preserved in some manner.
Yeah.
And stayed with the family.
Thank goodness some of that is still around, huh?
Right. And the majority, though, are things that were either found, left over, remnants of the soldiers' time here, battle, mini balls, bayonets, horse saddles, that sort of thing. We have a lot of those type of finds that have come to be with us here.
So interesting. What a period of time that was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd like to provide listeners with the contact information for the organization. The website is www.crossroadsmuseum.com. You can find them on Facebook at Crossroads Museum. Their address, in case you want to make a visit, and I hope you do, is 221 North Fillmore Street, Corinth, Mississippi, 38834. You can phone them at 662-287-3120, and you can email them at crossroadsmuseumdirector@gmail.com. The museum is closed on Mondays and Sundays. Their operating hours are Tuesday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. General admission is $5 with discounts available for seniors and free admission for youth aged 0 through 16. That all correct?
It is.
All right, fantastic. All right, Lisa, it's time to take a break for a few minutes.
Well, that 30 minutes flew by faster than a speeding bullet, but I am ready for a little break now.
Oh, fantastic. Listeners, we'll be right back after these important messages about taking your family for a visit to the great town of Corinth, Mississippi, and the Crossroads Museum and historic Corinth Depot. We'll be right back.
Looking for your next big adventure? It's waiting for you, right in Corinth at the Crossroads Museum and historic Corinth Depot. Located at 221 North Fillmore Street in Corinth, Mississippi, the Crossroads Museum is packed with fascinating stories, unforgettable exhibits, and the rich history that shaped the crossroads of the American South. Stand where two railroads meet that changed the course of a nation. Explore Civil War artifacts, local legends, and treasures from the golden age of travel, all inside a beautifully restored 1917 train depot. Perfect for families, weekend explorers, and history fans of all ages. There's always something new to discover at the Crossroads Museum.
Don't miss your chance to experience history up close. Plan your visit today at crossroadsmuseum.com. Find us on Facebook at Crossroads Museum or call 662-287-3120 for more details. History comes alive at the Crossroads Museum and historic Corinth Depot, where adventure is just a step away.
Let me catch up on Preservation Oaks emails. Here's one from Sandy in New York. She says, "Is it out yet?" Okay, here's another one. It's Bill in Arizona saying, "Is it out yet?" Oh man. And now it's Sarah in Minnesota. "Hi, is it out yet?" Stop. I can't read all these. Let me tell you all, the wait is over. A new episode of Preservation Oaks is released every 2 weeks, stuffed with information, history, genealogy, and everything you need to know to support your favorite cultural, genealogical, or historical society or museum throughout the United States. Listen to each new episode only at Preservation Oaks. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard this historic tour flight. This is your flight attendant speaking. Please turn on all personal podcast playing electronic devices and fasten your seatbelts as we're expecting some turbulence over the middle of our country. From there, we might stop over in Iowa for a spellbinding weekend before making our final descent into Mobile, Alabama in the mid-19th century. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy your historic tour with the Preservation Oaks podcast.
There's another way to get away and relax anytime you like. Just listen to another episode of the Preservation Oaks podcast. It's free, and it's an excellent way to enjoy the history and uniqueness of our country. The tour is on us. Enjoy.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
right, welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Radcliffe, and we're here today with Director Lisa Kinney from the Crossroads Museum and Historic Corinth Depot, located in Corinth, Mississippi. Let's pick up where we left off. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
In what ways does your organization engage with the community, and what are its main objectives?
Our main objectives here at the Crossroads Museum are in line with our mission statement, which is to collect and preserve the history and heritage of Corinth and Northeast Mississippi, and educate a diverse community of visitors and students through exhibits and programs in an engaging and enriching manner. So to meet those objectives, we try to foster and provide opportunities of interest to varying members of the community, regardless of age. I host many groups of students on field trips throughout the year, and I also get to host a number of scout troops, Sunday school classes, and senior living groups.
Oh, cool. Wow, very cool. Now, you also do something called the Green Market, right?
We do. The Green Market, we held our first one in April, and we do that seasonally from April through December, usually the first Saturday of each month. But we do skip July because that's just too dang hot here in Mississippi to be outside. July and August.
Yeah.
We have opted not to do markets in July and August of this year because last year the heat just about did us in.
Yeah. So what's been your personal path, Lisa, and how did it guide you to your current position within the organization?
As you already mentioned in my bio, I am a retired teacher. I'm also an avid history lover, which I inherited from my father. I had retired from teaching full-time in 2020. Then in 2022, I took a job as director of the Corinth Alcorn County Literacy Association, which works with teaching adults or English as a second language individuals how to read or improve their reading skills. And I really enjoyed that position. It was something near and dear to my heart, having been an educator. But then in 2023, early in that year, my husband had to be hospitalized, and it required me to step away from that job because I needed to be with him and, help and care for him. And so, unfortunately, in May of that same year, he passed away.
Oh, my.
So when I found myself again, just myself, I thought I need to find something constructive to do. So I saw the advertisement for this job at the museum that they needed a new director, and I thought that would be a perfect fit if I could get that job. And I guess the board thought it was a perfect fit as well because here I am.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear about your husband and your loss.
Well, when I was 59 at that time, but you don't get to see the later years without experiencing some loss. I did, though, reconnect with a old buddy from high school about a year ago, and we got married in October.
Oh, fantastic. Well, congratulations. That's
Thank
fantastic.
you. It was a kind of a chance meeting where we just started talking and said, hey, let's have coffee at SoCo Grind.
Oh, that's great.
Anyway.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So you started there as the director in 2024.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you've had a chance now to get your feet on the ground. And what kind of new and innovative things are you bringing to the job?
Well, we have done some things that in February I was able to get a traveling exhibit online from the Union Pacific Museum. It was called Wheels of War. And that was the first time something like that, a traveling exhibit, on loan from somewhere, had been brought in here. And I hope that will just be the first of others to come.
Yeah, that's very cool.
But there are any number of other things that I have in the works that are in the planning stage, but I don't want to name them out loud just now. So I encourage the listeners to keep up with our media pages to see what might be offered in the months to come.
Yep, fantastic, because I'm sure you're going to do some wonderful work.
Hope so.
Now, are there any upcoming events or exhibits that you think the community will find particularly engaging now that we're talking about something upcoming?
Well, I think that if we are able to do the Living History event that I spoke about earlier in conjunction with the ghost tour, which the ghost tour would just be something kind of, not serious and fun. But the living history part is fun, but it also, would highlight important people from our community sometimes that are not well known about. But one possibility I will say that I'm really excited about trying to pull together is to do an exhibit on Russell Keaton. He was a cartoonist, and he was part of a syndicated cartoon called Flying Jenny. And before that, he had drawn for like the Buck Rogers cartoons and the original Superman cartoons. And he had a quite prolific career in being part of cartoon drawing, teams. And they used to do what they call ghosting. There were a number of works that he did not get credit for originally, but he ghosted those works. But then he also had plenty that he was credited with. And we had some of his works here, and he was from Corinth, and he still has family members, a daughter and grandchildren that live in Corinth. And I really want to I'm working on trying to pull together an exhibit focusing on him to display some of his different works. And maybe if I can get some family members to come in one night and do a talk about him, and when we open up and to show his works.
Yeah, that'd be great. I don't get a newspaper today. I'm not sure if anybody still draws cartoons. Maybe they do. I don't know.
They do. I still, look in the newspaper that's delivered here to the museum because I get my news digitally online now. But when the physical copy comes to the museum, there are still the funny papers.
Oh, cool. People are still doing that. I don't see that online very often unless I'm missing something.
No, I don't either. I think what the newspaper that I see online just has the, all of the written content.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, that's very cool. Lisa, can you share any funny or intriguing stories from your organization's history that stand out to you?
Yes. When you deal with the public, there are always going to be humorous things that occur. But recently, I was just so tickled with some visitors that came in. It was a large family, a set of parents, and they had about 5 kids. And then there was some extended family with them. So it was a rather large group. And I saw them coming in, and one of the children was holding this little black ball of some kind of animal. I first thought it was a little puppy. And then when they got inside and I kept looking at it, I saw that it was a piglet.
Oh my God.
And I said, "Do you have to travel with your piglet when you go somewhere?" And they laughed and they said, "Well, this one we do because she was being bottle fed and the little piglet was only 8 days old.
Oh my.
And so, like a human infant, it requires feeding at intervals,
Yeah.
and it couldn't stay by itself for the duration that they were going to be gone that day. So they brought it with them.
I'll bet that
And
was cute.
the little pig's name was Fern. And they said, I said, "Well, you just need Wilbur to go along with him." And they said, "Oh, Wilbur's at home, but he's too big to travel."
Yeah.
You have to be a Charlotte's Web fan to get that reference, I
Absolutely.
suppose.
We had Myrtle and Henry on our farm.
Did you? Oh,
We did. That was a great story. Thank you for sharing.
yeah, that was the first and only pig that has been inside the museum.
Now, what are some standout experiences or feedback you've received from visitors that have particularly resonated with you?
Last summer, when I was still pretty new in my role as director, I was visited by a group of tourists from Sweden and Germany. They were part of a larger tour group that had originated in Memphis, Tennessee. They were out touring local Civil War sites. And these guys were so excited to be in Corinth. They had read all about the Battle of Corinth and how it integrated with the Battle of Shiloh. And they were just so excited to look at the artifacts and go out and stand on the crossroads. And they all wanted their picture made there. And they bought up all the books I had about the Battle of Corinth and books about trains. And they asked so many questions. So meeting and interacting with this group of international visitors who were so excited about Corinth's history made me look at things in a different perspective and think about how we just really take for granted, what's around us that we could still be learning from. Just because you've lived here all your life doesn't mean there is still not knowledge to be gained or enhanced.
Yeah, I tell you, you're so lucky, and that experience had to be very rewarding. But you are very lucky. You've got such a rich history in that area. Oh my gosh. When I
Yes,
think
we
about the
do.
fact that Shiloh, 23,000 people died in that battle, and I don't know how many people died in the Battle of Corinth.
I think that just the Battle of Corinth, I think the figures I have read say between 7 and 8,000.
Okay. Still, I mean, 7
But
or
still,
8,000 people dying at one time.
mhm.
I would imagine that your area gets visits from people who just had relatives who died in the battle, you know?
We do.
Yeah.
And, not just Southerners. We get people here who had someone who was part of the 1st Ohio or the, whatever different regiments that would have been part of the Union Army, but they died here
Yep.
or fought here. And so they want to come back and see the place.
Yep. I'm sure that they have a national graveyard or cemetery in the area where the fallen
Mhm.
were put, and there's probably Union and Confederate people there. Is that correct?
Yes. And there at Shiloh, there is a large cemetery there. And then there is a veteran cemetery here in Corinth as well.
Yeah. And I know in Corinth, I was reading that you had something called a contraband camp where
We do.
many
Mhm.
African American folks who were, I guess, refugees at that time banded together and came into Corinth for safety.
They did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice little park out on the east side of town. There's a walking trail. It's some really nice bronze type statues that are placed along the way that tell a little story of what daily life might have been like. Because it grew to be a pretty large community, and they had a school there, and they had, people could get their supplies there within the community, within the contraband community. And it was a pretty thriving community there for a couple of years. And then, the war ended and it disbanded, and people went on to find their way wherever they were going to go next. So.
Yeah. Amazing. I also was reading that Corinth played a major role in what do they call it? The Great Migration of African American people from the South to the North to work in factories.
Yeah,
not sure.
They did, and because of the railroads, primarily, they could book passage on a railway train to move north to better opportunities, and even up through the not just in the post Civil War years, but up through the Depression age and the 50s and 60s, there were many people from the African American community who would go to Chicago or Detroit, where there was more industry and they could get better paying jobs, a better living wage there. And by that time, there were the buses where they could either buy a bus ticket if they didn't have a vehicle to drive that way, or they could, get a train ticket and
they
go.
had Greyhounds at that time, right? Greyhound buses.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I imagine with all of that history in your area and all of that just rich level of history, you have almost unlimited possibilities for very relevant historical displays. What kinds of displays or exhibits are available for visitors to experience at your facility right now?
We have everything from the paleontological era, where we've got history of fossils and early formations in this area, and then up through the early Native American settlers that were here, the original occupants. We've got some nice collections of, arrowheads and other everyday tools that would have been used, and then history on the beginning of the town and the early settlers. A lot of people think, this is a Civil War museum, or, this is a train museum because we're on the depot. And that's not the case. It is a history of everything that has formed Corinth, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And so it includes the Civil War part of the history, but it includes many other things too, local people who were poets or sports figures, businessmen, And then we do have 2 rooms in the back. This is a newer addition that we've got some painstakingly reproduced miniature trains that run, and they're interactive. You can push the buttons and make them run the tracks, and push a whistle, and you have a train whistle, and we have a train table for the little visitors to play at, and something they can touch and not be told, don't touch that.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool museum. Is it more than one floor? Is it a single floor?
Single floor.
Okay. All right. Are you ever thinking about going up?
I don't think that we would be able to, because of this being a building that's on the historic register.
Oh, yeah.
We have to, stay with the historical integrity of a building when you have that status.
Yep. Good point. Now, how regularly do you update your exhibits? What's the approach to selecting new themes and artifacts?
As you said, I've been here just a little over a year now. So I think it had been a while since there had been a change in the exhibits, because there are certain core things that are going to stay because they're integral to the history here. But one of my goals is to bring in some things that rotate in and out, or that's just special for this time period, and then it'll move on. So I'm hoping to try to have something like that every few months that is transitional.
Oh, very cool. That's a good plan. On this podcast, we've had curators and exhibit designers and archivists talking about museums and what's the right way to take care of artifacts and so on. Can you describe the museum's collection management policies and procedures and how it cares for its artifacts?
We have been using the system that was in place when I came on here was Past Perfect, which is a software collections management program. And unfortunately, though, found our archives not in the best of shape. We have a team of volunteers right now, one of our board members who is spearheading this with some volunteers that we're going to need to go in and just go through everything physically again and see what matches up to what actually matches up to what we have on record, and maybe go and see what needs to be weeded out, what's not pertinent, because we have so many valuable things, but also we have found ourselves sometimes as a sort of a dumping ground.
Yeah.
Somebody was cleaning out Aunt Susie's attic and they found these things that they didn't want or didn't know what to do with, so they would bring them here. And then we would hate to appear ungrateful that somebody wanted to donate something to us, and then end up with something, though, that really has no relevance to our mission here. So all that is just to say that we are currently in an ongoing process of refining and upgrading.
I'm glad you're doing that.
And collections policy.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're doing that. So many museums have to do that on every 10 or 15 years to make sure that they use their space properly in the best way possible, because you only get so much.
Yes.
Now, in an emergency, if you had to evacuate the building, what items would you prioritize saving?
That is a hard call. The first thing that pops in my mind, though, is we have this very large wood carving, and there's only one of them in existence. It's very unique. It was created by a man who lived in a little community just south of Corinth. It's called Ryanzi. His name was E.S. Lancaster.
Yeah.
And he had no formal training, and he just started carving. And he used a penknife, and he has there were a number of pieces that he did. And the one that we have here in our museum is of the martyred presidents. There were only 3 at that time when he completed his piece in early 1920s. It was before, John F. Kennedy.
Right.
Who was in the 4th martyred president.
I'll bet that's a powerful piece.
Yeah. And it's probably about 6 feet in height.
Whoa.
And he went to different places, different states, to find the different kinds of wood that he wanted to use to create shading like to make Lincoln's hair look a darker color and make his jacket look black, or
That's
to
very
make
creative.
one president's eyes look blue. And it tells what kind of wood he used, but he didn't use any kind of ink or paint or stain. Everything was accomplished by using different pieces of wood to achieve the coloring that he wanted. And we've got the knife, it's affixed to the piece of art, the little pen knife that he used to complete the whole thing. And he worked on it for like 30 years.
Oh, my.
And his daughter ended up helping him finish it. It was finished in 1904.
Oh, my goodness.
And he was 83 when he finished it.
Wow.
And he worked on it for almost 40 years. And it was certified by a woodworker, a master of woodworkers in 1933.
Wow, that's amazing.
And some of the wood that he used in carving it, like the coat and tie, that the wood that was used to construct Lincoln's coat and tie, came from black walnut from a music case that was 230 years old at the time that he made the carving.
Wow.
So that's,
That is amazing. Now, can anybody see that? Is it on exhibit currently?
Yes, it's on exhibit.
Oh, my goodness. Boy, that's cool. Wow, that is just amazing. That is one of a kind, very unique.
It is. I don't know. It's just, you use the word powerful, and it is. He's got another piece that's a life-size replica of Jefferson, the Confederate president. It's in Biloxi.
Now, can you tell us about the funding sources for your organization and what financial goals you're working toward this year?
We are a 501c, so we're nonprofit. We do receive a monthly stipend from the city of Corinth, which we're very grateful for. And then the remainder of our funding and operation comes from admissions and from items sold in the gift shop. And then, of course, our green market, that is a banner fundraiser for us. We rely very much on the income that is generated from that market. We have this is the first year that the board tried separating the job of museum director and green market planner into two separate people. So we have a very young and energetic young lady who has so much going on. I don't know how she keeps it all together, but Jackie Harris is the green market director, and she does a phenomenal job in all that she has planned and brought to that. So everything that comes from supporting the green market goes directly into keeping the museum with a budget and operating.
Oh, very cool. I'm glad the city leaders recognize the value of a museum like yours in the area. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am too. So many other museums or organizations similar to this can't operate without receiving grants or some kind of, funding like that. And those are nice. And we have received grants for some of the projects that we've done here in the past. But it's nice to know that as things are right now, if there's not a grant available, that we're still able to keep on operating because of the other things that are in place here in our community.
Right. Well, you get donations from the public.
We do.
You get your city stipend, and you've got event rentals, event spaces to rent.
We do. You mentioned the memberships, the supports. You can come by here to the museum and buy a season membership for you or your family. You can just make a donation and be a sponsor. And event rentals. We have birthday parties here a lot of times. We've got the 2 train rooms.
Cool.
And so a lot of little children love the trains. And so their parent will want to have a train-themed birthday party here and rent that room back there for that. Sometimes we have wedding receptions or a type of business event that they will want to rent the museum or a certain space in the museum, the event room, we call it.
And it's very reasonable from what I read on your website.
It is. Yeah, you can even rent out the whole care garden, the green space in front of the museum.
Very cool.
And that entitles you to use the space within the museum as well. If you've got a big, like a wedding and a reception, you want the whole venue.
How does somebody do that? Do they just call and talk with somebody there?
They can go on the website and fill out a form there, and I'll get a notification that I can call them back. But the best and most direct way is to just give me a call at the museum or either stop by here and talk to me about it.
Oh, wonderful. Now, you've also got some major corporate players in the area that are sponsors for business sponsors, I guess, for your museum. And
right. Some of these are sponsors at the Green Market, and some of these have sponsored certain exhibits within the museum. But wherever their sponsorship has been applied, it all comes back to benefit of the museum.
Oh, that's very cool. So we talked about membership. How much is a membership and what are the levels?
Individual for one person is $35. If you're a senior citizen, then it's $25 for an annual individual membership. You can buy a family membership that's for as many people as are in your family household for $100. And so that just means when you buy a membership, that just means that you get to come as many times as you want to during the year. There's no cap on the number of visits, and you just bring your membership card. And then if there are special events, you get special notice. You get to know about things sometimes before the general public gets to know about it.
Oh, very cool.
Sometimes we have special events here, and if you're a pass holder, then you will be invited to come into this special event before it's open to the general public. Plus, you get to know that you've helped the museum.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Lisa, but it's time for us to take a break for a few minutes.
Well, that's no problem. I guess it is time to stop and pause and get ready to come back at full speed again.
Now, listeners, we'll be right back after these important messages about becoming a member and volunteering at the Crossroads Museum and historic Corinth Depot. It's well worth your money. It's well worth your time. It's a beautiful place there in Corinth, Mississippi, and I hope you all visit, become members, and volunteer. We'll be right back.
Are you passionate about history? Do you love meeting new people and giving back to your community? The Crossroads Museum and historic Corinth Depot in Corinth, Mississippi is looking for enthusiastic members and volunteers And they need you.
Located at 221 North Fillmore Street, the Crossroads Museum preserves the rich stories of Corinth's past. From Civil War history to the golden age of railroads. Volunteers are the heartbeat of the museum, welcoming visitors, leading tours, and helping preserve the treasures that make Corinth so special.
Whether you're a history buff, a student needing service hours, or simply someone who loves sharing your hometown pride, there's a place for you at the Depot. No experience? No problem. They'll provide all the training you need.
Step into a world where every day you can make a difference. Join the Crossroads Museum family today. Visit crossroadsmuseum.com. Find us on Facebook at Crossroads Museum. Call 662-287-3120 or email crossroadsmuseumdirector@gmail.com to learn more. Come join and volunteer and be part of history in the making.
Come on, man. You're listening to Preservation Oaks on MicroStream Radio. If you enjoy the show, then please tell all your friends, family, neighbors, pals, business associates, colleagues, and maybe a couple of enemies about the show. Stay tuned for more episodes at preservationoaks.podbean.com. We thank you so much for spreading the love.
Just a reminder about the military holidays we observe annually in these United States. Armed Forces Day is to acknowledge those still in uniform serving our nation. Veterans Day is for those who served and have hung up the uniform. We honor those who served. Memorial Day is for those who never made it out of their uniform. We reflect on those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Please teach your children to observe these days each year.
Do you know who said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty"? Those famous words were written by Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson knew that human nature tends to cause us to take for granted the freedoms for which others have fought valiantly. He knew that Americans had to be alert, or the essential freedoms of democracy would be taken away. That's why Jefferson gave his warning to the Americans of his era and to their descendants. He set the price for liberty as eternal vigilance. And Americans through the years have heeded Jefferson's warning. They have been alert to detect and resist the enemies of liberty. Remember the words of Thomas Jefferson. They are part of your American heritage. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back. We're here today with Lisa Kinney from the Crossroads Museum and Historic Corinth Depot, located in Corinth, Mississippi. I want to start talking about education now, Lisa, which I suspect is very important to you being a retired educator. I'm learning a lot about Corinth and having a great time. Thank you and welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
What partnerships do you have with local schools to help teach students about the area's history?
Well, we always are very happy to work with any schools when they contact us about bringing a group here, I always try to plan what activities or specific things I might talk about in relation to what age group it is. And if they're studying something in particular, sometimes they're being brought in because they're on a particular unit of study. And if I know that, then I will try to bring out some particular things. And sometimes they're just here because it's time to take a field trip and here's a museum,
Yeah.
But we try to make ourselves available and welcoming so they'll always know that we like to have those students here.
So you have children all the time coming through there. You said you have Cub Scout groups and Girl Scout groups and different clubs, and I think that's wonderful.
Yes, I do too. I like it that we're a place that is inviting to that scope of patrons, from the very young to the high school age to the retirement home.
Right. Now, I want to talk about volunteers. What volunteer roles does your organization offer for community members interested in getting involved?
Well, we could use volunteers in several different capacities. Clerical, just like organizing, filing, helping to catalog things. We're going to need some volunteers for this archive cleanup project that I've mentioned several times. Some volunteers who just are willing to get in there and get a little dirty and don't mind moving stuff around. And it's always nice to have a little bank of volunteers that you can call on in a pinch if I have to be out. We have one other paid employee who works on Saturdays, and when I am going on a trip or for some reason, can't come in. But sometimes she can't come in either. Sometimes she has things to do.
Yeah.
So, just some volunteers who are willing to be trained to run the gift shop and invite people into the museum and take their admission money,
Yeah, very cool. Well, yeah, you've got the digitization that's going on, the cataloging, the archive cleanup. You've got some event work, I'm sure, for events like educational events for the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and the various clubs. All of that takes, time and energy to organize and pull off properly.
And volunteers to help out with our Green Market Saturdays.
Ah, yeah.
Are beneficial as well. We have, fortunately, in the past, a lot of times been able to have some high school students who will come and volunteer because they have programs where they can get points for community service towards graduation,
Yeah, that's very cool.
Involvement.
Now, if somebody does want to volunteer, they can just contact the museum and there's somebody there that can help walk them through the process, or is it they need to go to the website, or how does that work?
Well, if they go to the website, it will link to an email address and they could use that to send me an email that they would like to be a volunteer or to know more about it.
Great.
The telephone still is a good way to communicate.
Yep. Now, for somebody wanting to dive into local history, what resources or reading materials would you suggest?
There is a book entitled The Lost Account of the Battle of Corinth and the Court Martial of General Van Dorn. It's supposed to be a true account. It's been reprinted a number of times. It's very interesting, though. It tells about the Battle of Corinth, and it's by an unknown author. It was compiled from old pamphlets and diary entries and personal accounts found in an old attic and trunks and dresser drawers, but there was no name attributed to these documents. But it's been researched and authenticated as far as the facts. It was edited and compiled by a man named Monroe F. Cockrell.
Oh, cool.
It's interesting reading, and it's just simple, straightforward telling of the story. I think it would be worth reading for anybody who wanted to learn more just about the Battle of Corinth. And another book that I would recommend is called Mother. It's about the life of Mary Bickerdike. The author of that one is Bonnie Davies.
Okay.
Mary Bickerdike actually served in the Union Hospital here in Corinth for a few years, but she was a nurse, an important woman in the Civil War history. She had studied Florence Nightingale and her methods. She applied her ability at healing and caring for people to the Civil War hospital tents and wounded. So it's very interesting. She, as I said, she played a part in the hospital for wounded here in Corinth at the time of the Civil War. And it's just an interesting glimpse into her life.
That's very cool. Thank you for those resources.
You're welcome.
I'd like to provide listeners with the contact information for the organization once again. Their website is www.crossroadsmuseum.com. On Facebook, you can find them at Crossroads Museum. Their address is 221 North Fillmore Street, Corinth, Mississippi, 38834. You can phone them at 662-287-3120. And their email is crossroadsmuseumdirector@gmail.com. Lisa, what resources and interactive features are available for visitors to explore on your website?
Well, just, check us out on that website that you provided or on Facebook. On the website, there are tabs where you can click on that and see about joining, becoming a member, making a donation. It highlights some of our different exhibits and tells about event rentals, and also has the contact information again there on the website.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool website. It's very good looking and it's got a lot of great content. You can do a lot there. You can find out about membership and supporting the organization and all of those things that you would expect to find on a museum's website. It's really nice.
Thank you. We have a very nice young gentleman in town who helps us maintain that. He sure puts up with a lot of questions from me.
Well, God bless him.
Yeah.
Now, what initiatives is your organization implementing to engage young volunteers and leverage their skills in your programs?
I think I mentioned earlier that we had student volunteers through part of a program at their school that would help us out sometimes. And the Junior Civitans is one group where I've had the benefit of some of those young people coming and helping me with some projects here at the museum. And they're just all good kids and really willing to help out. So I went and talked to their group one time. The leader asked me to come, and then so I had several people, come in from that group of students that came and helped me with a project. There is a class with the Corinth High School that on tourism and like business management, and they helped put together advertising and promotional package of things when we were having the traveling exhibit in February. Did some marketing and promotions for that. Young people are just awesome. They can be so talented and skilled and just don't get enough credit for the creativity that they have a lot of times.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Thank you for that. What ongoing initiatives or pressing needs does your museum have that community members can support?
Well, the biggest way that they can support is by coming, come out and visit the museum. Keep abreast of what's changing and what's going on, and tell other people about it. When you have visitors, relatives come from out of town, bring them to see the museum. We like if you donate or buy a membership or something, for sure, but just those daily admissions are really important. And a museum is kind of like a living entity in a way, in that it's got to have interaction.
Yeah.
Without people coming to see it, there's no life to a museum, and anything that is here serves no purpose if nobody's coming to partake in it.
Yep, good point. Visitors are key. Now, does your organization take requests from the public for genealogical consulting or research?
We do have questions that come in a lot of times about certain matters of genealogy. Sometimes there are things that they ask about that I'm able to help them with. We will have photos or something in our records that deals with that, especially in some of the old books and things that I have here. But quite often it will be something where I will need to refer them to the genealogy department, which is currently utilizing our research library space while the courthouse is being renovated. And sometimes it is a question that I will say, go check at the library, because they've got genealogy research upstairs and they've got some books behind their desk that you can ask about. And so if I can't give them the answer that they seek, I try to help them know where to look next.
Okay. And is there a cost for your help?
No.
Okay.
I'm not Ancestry. I'm not providing that kind of that kind of help.
Well, thank you for doing it for people.
No problem.
Is there any additional message or important information you'd like to share with the community or your members?
I just want to say, I guess, if I'm going to share a message, thank you to all of our supporters. Thank you to those people who come and visit us and bring more people to visit us. And thank you to those people who say nice things about us on our website and on the Facebook page. To those people who come in, you're wanting to buy a unique gift for somebody, so you come in the gift shop to find something that's local or about Mississippi. Thank you for thinking of us, and just keep on thinking of us and spread the word that we are here.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Now, last question. How does your organization measure the impact you have on visitors and the community? Do you use some form of management or metrics framework?
No, we do not at this time. Our Little Green Market Director always hands out a survey to the vendors where she takes input from them about, how did you feel about it this time, and suggestions and that sort of thing. So that would be a good idea, I think, to apply in some way to visitors as far as gauging at some point.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be done. Most museums do sign-in logs.
Yeah, we do, keep track of our likes and comments on Facebook, but that's the extent of it right now. At some point, some type of other input and survey would be good in trying to get an idea of how people respond to this exhibit or this exhibit, or what they would be interested in, what would bring them out to come back again, what would they like to see that we don't have.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Do you do surveys like that?
We have not. I found, going through old files and stuff, I found a file where, like 10 years ago, one of the previous directors had done some kind of community survey, and they had used the data from that in getting some kind of grant that they received at that time for improvement, or something.
Yeah.
Usually when I was teaching or when I was librarian as well, if you applied for a grant, you always had to, it wasn't just a one and done. There was always some follow up, where you had to measure and report on impact.
Lisa, I want to thank you for such a wonderful conversation today. It's been a pleasure learning about Corinth and the incredible impact you and your organization have on the community. I really feel inspired by all you do and all the possibilities that you have in the area. I'm so happy to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today. I've enjoyed it as well, and I've enjoyed the conversation we've had and getting to share with you and your listeners what we do here at the museum and some more about our history and our unique town here and what we have to offer if you should decide to come south and pay us a visit.
Yeah, fantastic part of our country. And with that, we'll end our time with our guest, Lisa Kinney, Executive Director of the Crossroads Museum and Historic Corinth Depot. Listeners, please stay tuned for my comments and wrap-up, which are coming up next. Well, it's raining here in sunny Salt Lake City, and that's a wrap on another inspiring episode of Preservation Oaks. Before we sign off, let's take a moment to thank our remarkable guest, Executive Director Ms. Lisa Kinney of the Crossroads Museum and Historic Corinth Depot in Corinth, Mississippi. Lisa brings over 3 decades of educational expertise as a teacher, librarian, and an academic coach to her role, and her passion for preserving history shines through every story she shares. Lisa's knowledge of the museum's multifaceted collections, from prehistoric fossils and Native American artifacts to Civil War relics and the contraband camp and its statues, gave us unparalleled insight into the heart of Alcorn County. We heard about the thrilling ghost lore of lantern-lit tracks and phantom Confederate soldiers, the Depression-era ingenuity behind the iconic Slug Burger, and even a surprise visit from an 8-day-old piglet that stole everyone's heart. These human interest moments remind us that history lives in the anecdotes and everyday connections we share. Under Lisa's leadership, the Crossroads Museum has hosted its first traveling exhibit, Wheels of War, in partnership with the Union Pacific Museum. Like many nonprofits, the museum still has ambitious goals ahead, and it needs our support to reach them. They're calling on the community to visit and revisit the museum. Every visit fuels preservation and programming. Please volunteer. Opportunities abound in clerical support, archive cleanup, gift shop staffing, special events including that ghost tour Living History project, and Green Market Saturdays. Spread the word. Tell friends and family about those monthly rotating exhibits, Russell Keaton cartoon showcases, and upcoming Living History events. If you've ever been captivated by tales of the Battle of Corinth, the Corona Women's College, or the one-of-a-kind wood carving of the nation's martyred presidents, now is the time to act. Your involvement, not just financially, but as a visitor, volunteer, and advocate, brings these stories to life and secures them for future generations. To plan your visit or learn more about volunteering, here's Lisa's info once again. The website is www.crossroadsmuseum.com. Their Facebook is at Crossroads Museum. The address is 221 North Fillmore Street, Corinth, Mississippi 38834. You can phone them at 662-287-3120. And you can email them at crossroadsmuseumdirector@gmail.com. Operating hours are Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Admission is just $5 for adults, $3 for seniors, and free for youths 0 to 16, with memberships and family passes available. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing your wisdom and warmth with us, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's journey through the crossroads of history, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, supporting the Crossroads Museum means more stories rescued from the past, more community events, and more moments of discovery for everyone. Now, if questions occur to you and you'd like more information, please connect with the Crossroads Museum via the contact information provided. If you're a listener in the area the organization serves and you're not already a member, please consider joining and supporting them. I hope this information helps the audience understand how valuable the Crossroads Museum is to the community and what kinds of excellent services they have to offer to their members and the public. The Crossroads Museum and historic Corinth Depot is truly one of our nation's preservation oaks. All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Music used today is from Cymbalbird, 8-Ball Audio, Waiterman, Sync Hits, Gem 4C3P, Score Wizards, Smid, and Scott Holmes. Hey, this is Sean Radcliffe. I'll see you all next time on Preservation Oaks, and until then, keep on giving and keep on living the good life.
Microstream Radio is a registered trademark. You can visit at www.microstreamradio.com. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted by Microstream Radio. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, reproduced, copied, or used anywhere without the written permission of Microstream Radio. Preservation Oaks starring Sean Radcliffe originates in Salt Lake City, Utah. Be sure to join us for our next episode on your favorite podcast platform. This is Thaddeus Dillon speaking. Preservation Oaks has come to you through the worldwide podcast platform Podbean, and our home is preservationoaks.podbean.com. Hopefully you found today's episode useful, informative, and thought-provoking. If so, please like, follow, comment, and/or subscribe. Remember that being free means being free to be curious, and that historical and genealogical societies and museums allow us to discover the past, be free to explore, where curiosity opens every door. Thanks to everyone for listening. Stay cozy, curious, and keep exploring the incredible stories that shape our world. Remember to cherish and support the preservation of history in your own communities. The content of this program is provided for educational and informational purposes only. Some material included in this program may be copyrighted by third parties. However, under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act, the doctrine of fair use allows the limited use of copyrighted material without requiring permission from the rights holders when used for purposes such as education, criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. These uses are legally permitted even if they might otherwise constitute infringement. If you wish to use copyrighted material from this program for purposes beyond fair use, you must obtain permission from the copyright owner. If you believe your copyrighted material has been used in this program in a way that does not qualify as fair use, please contact us at preservationoaks@gmail.com. Thank you.